So that's exactly what we're going to do in this episode. We're going to take a look at how the Chesapeake and Ohio ran things versus how CSX does today. You'd be surprised at how different, yet how similar the two companies run the same piece of railroad. So come on along as we explore that on this episode of Train Time. Another train marches east, just as they've been doing on this railroad for over 150 years. Today, CSX keeps the steamboat tradition alive, but runs a modern railroad. To better understand, or at least appreciate, what we're seeing every time a train flies these rails today, you have to take a look back. Let us examine how C&O moved tonnage and how CSX still does. Governing train movements begins with the dispatcher. The dispatcher that controlled the New River had their office on the top floor of the Hinton Depot. A climb up these stairs would have put you right in the middle of all the action getting trains over the C&O. How did it all get done? A lot of people. When the dispatcher needed to get a message down the line, they used a small army of employees at various points along the route, be it station agents at stations like Thurmond or Prince, or cabin operators who manned interlocking towers, called cabins on the C&O, and controlled junctions to facilitate train movement. This is RU Cabin in Russell, Kentucky. Although it's no longer active, it's one of the few cabins still left on the C&O main line, as CSX eventually demolished most that hadn't been taken down by C&O or Chessie. At one time, RU Cabin guarded the entrance to the largest classification yard owned by a single railroad. Now that honor belongs to the huge Bailey Yard in North Platte, Nebraska, owned by Union Pacific. RJ Cabin is a great place to go over the process of authorizing train movements back in the day. The process went something like this. The dispatcher would call an operator and dictate the train order to the operator, who would then read it back word for word to make sure everyone was on the same page. Here's what that read back between the dispatcher and operator would have sounded like. Thanks to Mike Burgett for permission to use this audio. It is not technically from the field, but it may as well be. Mike has an amazing model railroad showcasing the C&O as it was in the summer of 1965. Here the dispatcher is getting lead back from the operator at Gladstone, Virginia. Not really our neck of the woods, but the same thing would have happened at, say, Sewell or Golly or anywhere along the New River.
Train order number 303, 303, August 12, 1-2-1965, 1965, to the CAE Extra 7094, 7094, West WEST, and the operator Gladstone, GLADSTONE, at Gladstone, GLADSTONE. Body of the order reads, after Extra 7420-7420, East, EAST, arrives at Gladstone, GLADSTONE, Extra 7094-7094, West, WEST has right over, opposing trains on eastward, EAST, WARD, track, Gladstone, GLADSTONE, and Walkerford, WALKER, FORD.
Gladstone will make order train number 303 complete at 11:29 p.m. Dispatcher DSP.
Train order number 303 made complete, time 11:29, 11:29 p.m. DSP.
All right, let's go ahead and clear up this train with one order, no messages.
Gladstone clears the Extra 7094 West. One order, train order number 303, no messages, operator dark.
Gladstone will make that clearance okay at 11:31 p.m. DSP.
Okay, 11:31, 11:31 p.m. DSP.
Here's an actual train order I have in my collection. This order was copied at CW Cabin, which guarded the west end of Hinton Yard, on December 31st, 1976. In this order, they are telling trains do not exceed 30 miles an hour around Hanley. Top speed for most trains in Hanley at that time was 50, so this is a significant drop in speed, but there was something that had them doing that, so they had to follow the order. Once the order was cleared by both the dispatcher and the operator, the train order board would be set. The train order board was usually a semaphore and indicated to the train crew if they had any orders to pick up or if they could just keep on rolling. The semaphore system used on the C&O was fairly simple. If it was pointed straight up, there were no orders for your train and you could proceed. If the semaphore was at a 45-degree angle, it meant you had orders and you better be ready to get them. A semaphore pointed straight down meant to stop your train, go inside, and sign the orders you were getting. The vast majority of train orders were picked up on the fly using a train order hoop. It was either a stationary hoop like this one or the operator holding one on the end of a long pole so the crew could simply reach out their arm and grab it. Both the head end and caboose got a copy of the orders, and the operator kept the copy as well. Today, CSX keeps all their dispatchers in Jacksonville, Florida at their huge dispatching center, and the railroad is governed using a computer to control signals. Once the dispatcher creates a route for a train through their territory, signals will light up giving appropriate indications. In this case, we're looking at a clear signal on track 2 for train U212, an extra manifest train that's on the way to Russell, Kentucky. U212 is likely CSX playing a little bit of catch-up and trying to get some customers back on schedule outside of the regularly scheduled train that runs this route. Just one engine is carrying 77 cars over the road this morning. When I got down here, the signal was red, and after waiting a while, it turned green. If I had to guess, I'd say U212 had some business to do in Quinnamont, and when they were ready to go, the dispatcher sent them on through. On CSX, it's a rule that all trains call out signals as they go along the line. They call out on the radio the train number, lead engine number, signal indication, what track they're on, and the direction of travel. They do so on what's called the road channel, a radio channel designated to be used by all trains and other track vehicles on a certain segment of track, and anyone else out there who's working on the old C-Note today should know where you are if they're on that channel. Listen as the crew of U212 calls out the Thurman signal.
Track was 260, 32 roadway, 212, 2 to 9.
at the signal now. Notice how it's red? It turned red after the lead engine passed under it. What that means is that U-212 is now in the block of railroad that signal governs, and it's telling any train that may be behind it to stop. In this case, that block reaches to Sewell. It will stay red until the dispatcher lines another train westward on track 2, however long that takes. If you're somewhere on CSX rail and you see anything but an all-red signal, there is a train coming. It may be 5 minutes or 45 minutes, but there is definitely one coming. Even though the dispatcher is sitting all the way in Florida, train crews can still call them directly by radio. This is an R.J. Corman crew bringing a coal train into Thurman with a very special leader, CSX 1776, the spirit of our armed forces. When the train stops, they'll call the CSX dispatcher and get permission to enter his railroad.
CSXT locomotive 1776, 1776.
CSXT 1776, you do have permission to enter and occupy the number 2 lane there at Loop Creek between Claremont and Thurman, and we'll bring out the train run around there at Rush Run, 1641 hours, KHB open.
Stand the 54931, has dispatcher permission to handle switch at Loop Creek off number 2 traction location out in the side of Rush Run. Let you know Loop Creek's store back to 2 ready to run around 1641 KHB.
That's correct, Delvin. What's that other engine, just out of curiosity, we had there with that 1776 open?
CSXT locomotive 855, 855, back to back, both running good, DP capable.
All right, we got that good information. Once you get that side, I'll be ready for that west end to spin it over.
I understand. Thank you, Dispatcher. Harsh, a little bit to the top 49 and 31.
You might have heard him say CSXT, and you might be thinking, well, that's a CSX locomotive. Where'd that T come from? Well, CSX's full name is CSX Transportation, and the rule is that CSX's reporting mark, since it's an operating railroad, cannot end in an X, so they just use the company name, CSXT, for CSX Transportation. That's where that comes from. One of my favorite aspects of all-time railroading is OSing a train. Depending on who you ask, OS can mean on sheet, on station, or out of station. I've heard all three. On sheet refers to the train sheet each operator or station agent kept showing train movements by their location each day. On station is simply saying, hey, this train is at the station that I'm at. Or out of station is, again, the train is out of the station that I'm at. To OS a train is simply notifying others, including other agents and the dispatcher, that a train has passed you. OSing a train was as simple as getting on the telegraph, telephone, or teletype and reporting the train by you. We'll use this coal train as an example. Since the coal train is not a timetable train, so it's an extra, and extras are identified by lead engine number only, in this case CSX 3237 East, since it's an eastbound train. So our OS report would read Extra 3237 East, OS DN. DN was the telegraph code for Thurman, and we'll note the time at 10:25 a.m. Today most all coal trains are labeled as needed. Some may run multiple times a week, and some may only run once a year. They're not technically extra trains, so they're not regularly scheduled either. They do have a train symbol, though. For example, C206 is a symbol for eastbound loads that come off R.J. Corman here in Thurman for Newport News. Perhaps the most iconic image of railroading gone by is the caboose at the end of a freight train. The caboose served two main purposes. It was a rolling office for the conductor and rear brakeman, as well as providing a means for them to look over the train for any potential problems. One of the most common was a hot axle. Trains used to be equipped with friction bearings, and the journal boxes that enclosed the bearing were filled with an oil-soaked rag. Occasionally, the bearing could catch the rag on fire, and if left long enough, it could become a major problem, and in the worst-case scenario, cause a derailment. The classic image of the caboose is probably something like this, with the cupola on top, but as freight cars got bigger, most railroads switched to the bay window caboose like seen here, with the windows on the side allowing the crew to see around those bigger cars. One of the advancements that spelled the end of the caboose was the wayside defect detector. These devices are placed every 10 miles or so and can detect not only if an axle is overheating, but if there's any dragging equipment or if a load is too high or wide. Once the train is passed, they spit out a report on the road channel including how many axles the train is. They used to tell you how long it was, but not anymore. DDs analyze not only freight trains but passenger trains and some on-track equipment. Here's Amtrak 50, the eastbound Cardinal passing Cotton Hill with the Day 1 Heritage Unit showing the way. Not too far from here is the Cotton Hill defect detector. Watch the train and then listen for the report.
Amtrak 1527 on the 301, eastbound, number 1 track, there Cotton Hill, ready to go.
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the program and would like to watch past episodes or check out our other broadcasts, you can do so on our Facebook page at New River Network. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel, again, New River Network. Check us out on Roku. WatchNRN.com shows you exactly what's being shown on air at that time. And speaking of on air, you can also watch us over the airwaves in cable. Yep, we're on cable. Channel 4 on the Plateau, Channel 17 down in the valley. So, for the New River Network, I'm Lucas Berry. Reminding you that any time is train time.